Good afternoon. Thank you. It's good to see you here today at the 2024 Alumni Awards ceremony here at Anderson University as a part of our Homecoming and Family Weekend. It's been a wonderful weekend. I hope a lot of you have been here even since Friday. We've had great weather and great festivities and great fun. And this is one of the last big events to celebrate this homecoming, and I think it's really one of the best ways to do it, a best for last, if you will, to really recognize some of our very best. And we have a lot, 30,000 plus alumni in the network, and so many doing great things. But there are 5 that we will recognize today that we're so proud of, that we can be Ravens together in the ways that they've impacted the world and lived into the mission of Anderson University to live out a life of faith and service in the church and society. So this is going to be a great afternoon, hearing from some people that presenting the award to our winners, and to hear some really fun and spirited acceptance speeches. So it's going to be a great afternoon. My name is Trent Palmer. I'm the Director of Alumni Relations. I'm a 2006 alumnus. And yes, it's been very good to be here. And I would actually like to go ahead and bring up President Pistol for some additional words of congratulations and an opening prayer.
Thank you, Trent, and it is good to welcome you here and to congratulate our award winners this evening, the families, the friends, people who have been influential in their lives, who have made their lives so rich and so meaningful to others. Because our award winners tonight are those who have impacted lives for good. They have done things that have enabled students, faculty, staff, and other alum to do good things because of the influence. They have seasoned, they have salted, they have done things that have encouraged others and inspired others, and we'll hear some of those stories this evening. So Trent said this is kind of a highlight, wrapping up. There is still Cheap Thrills Encore, which I'm sure you're all going to later tonight in Reardon. Be careful on that. But it is something, just shows the breadth of what we have here to celebrate at Anderson University, as Trent mentioned, with over 30,000 alum now. And most of you probably are alum, and obviously most of us in leadership are here. So it's a joy to welcome you here tonight. Please join me in a word of prayer. Gracious and loving God, you are our creator and our sustainer, and we just celebrate you for who you are and how you have called us into being and given us life and breath and rest and relationships. And it's those relationships that we celebrate tonight. Our alum who have just made a difference in their worlds, which have impacted so many others that this side of heaven we just won't know, but we'll hear a little bit about tonight. So we want to thank you for your generosity, your graciousness, your grace, and the love that you have poured into these recipients tonight and their family and friends who have enabled them to do good things for you and the kingdom of God. It is in your Son's precious and powerful name that we pray. Amen.
Each year, Anderson University honors alumni across the world doing exemplary work and service that make positive and transformative impacts in their communities. These recognitions include the John H. Kane Loyalty Award, the Distinguished Service Award, the Mosaic Multicultural Alumni Award, the Distinguished Young Alumni Award, and the Distinguished Young Alumni Award. The Greater Alumni Network of 30,000 plus were alerted in the late spring of the annual awards and throughout the summer, encouraged to nominate individuals they knew who would be deserving of these accolades. After closing the nomination process, a committee of the Alumni Council pared down nominations to a few in each category that then went to a final round selection by the full Alumni Council. After that, proposed winners were submitted to President Pistol. We're always overwhelmed by the amount of alumni doing so many incredible things and hearing from peers about these accounts with such appreciation and passion. The 5 award winners this year are certainly deserving of this recognition. Anderson University's first president, John Morrison, exclaimed, "Life is saved only by dedication to something larger than itself. The purpose of life is to spend it for something that will outlast it. Aspirational words spoken years ago that have been realized by this 2024 class. So let's meet and hear more about these remarkable ravens. Tonight's first honoree is the recipient of the John H. Kane Loyalty Award. First awarded in 1981, the criteria following are used in selecting the John H. Kane Loyalty Award recipient: an alumnus or friend of Anderson University, and one who has given distinguished service to the school. So now I would like to welcome to the podium the presenter for the John H. Kane Loyalty Award to Dr. Jerry Grubbs, 1984 alumnus, Lieutenant Colonel David Farlow.
It's my great honor and privilege to introduce to you tonight the Reverend Dr. Jerry C. Grubbs. Born 84 years ago in South Carolina, Dr. Grubbs is the fifth of 6 children born to J.C. and Ruth Grubbs. Raised in a pastor's home, he grew up his elementary and high school years in West Monroe, Louisiana. At the age of 17, he joined the United States Army and served for 3 years stateside and in Korea. Following his military service, he returned to West Monroe, Louisiana, and married his childhood sweetheart, Janet Smith. They have been married for 63 years, have 2 children, 8 grandchildren, 10 great-grandchildren, and 1 exceptional son-in-law. While attending Northeast Louisiana State University, where he received his undergraduate degree in secondary teacher education, he served as senior pastor of the Church of God in Rayville, Louisiana. In 1966, he moved with his family to Anderson to attend the School of Theology, graduating in 1970 with a master's in religious education. In the fall of 1973, while lead pastor of the Tacoma Church of God in Johnson City, Tennessee, Dr. Grubbs was invited by President Robert Reardon and Dean Barry Callan to return to Anderson to teach Christian education in the School of Theology. This began a journey with Anderson spanning some 28 years. During those years, he served in the following capacities: Professor of Christian Education, Director of the Center for Pastoral Studies, Vice President and Dean of the School of Theology, Vice President of Student Life and Intercollegiate Athletics, and Dean of the University Chapel. Additional graduate work was taken at East Tennessee State University, Ball State University, and Indiana University. From the latter, he received both a master's and doctoral degrees in adult and continuing education. As an ordained minister in the Church of God, he has been the lead pastor in 3 congregations in Louisiana, Indiana, and Tennessee. Following his retirement from Anderson University, he served 12 congregations of the Church of God in Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, and Alabama as an interim senior pastor. His work in the national work of the Church of God has included serving on the Division of Church Service, Long-Range Planning Committee of the Executive Council of the Church of God, National Board of Christian Education, Commission on Social Concerns, and the Servant Solutions Board. Dr. Grubbs has been a contributing writer to several books and publications and written 2 small books on teaching doctrine and continuing education for ministry. His doctoral dissertation has received national recognition in its research on teaching methodology of adult learners. Special honors have come to Dr. Grubbs across the years, including President's White House Conference on Aging in 1970, Outstanding Educators of America, 1975, Anderson University School of Theology Alumni Services Award in 1989, Professor Emeritus of Anderson School of Theology in 2001, Alumni Wall of Honor, West Monroe, Louisiana High School, 2010, Lead Pastor Emeritus of Chesterfield Community Church of God, 2023. He has traveled and served the church widely and having been in all 50 states and 21 countries. Most often he travels to Honduras, where he has served for 35 years as one of the founders and on the board of ministry for Heart to Honduras. His hobbies include reading, travel, writing, golf, and fishing. A final word of tribute to Jerry comes from Reverend Brent Beggs, School of Theology graduate and present pastor of Sterling Heights, Michigan. Brent served as an interim on the staff of Chesterfield Community Church of God while attending the School of Theology. He says, Dr. Jerry Grubbs has dedicated his life and service in the Church of God and many faithful years of service to the school. He has been influential in my life and the formation as a mentor, teacher, and friend. Pretty impressive. Let me tell you the other side. So I get the inside perspective on the Reverend Dr. Jerry Grubbs, who we affectionately call Papa instead. So I came to Anderson College then in 1980, and this place was crawling with grubs. They were all over the place. There were student grubs, there were professor grubs, and I didn't know any of them. I knew the students, I didn't know the professors. And that was fine, and fortunately, his bio mentions that he was the vice president for student life, but fortunately for me, that didn't occur until well after I had graduated, which came to play later as there was a certain young lady named Kimberly Grubbs who caught my eye. And yeah, so I get to meet the Grubbs family. The first time she invites me to her house to meet her parents, there was Jerry Grubbs and his wife, Jeanette, Sue and Perry Grubbs, Dwight and Sylvia Grubbs. There were Grubbs everywhere, and I wasn't sure which one was which. But as things progressed with the family and Kim and I ultimately got married, I began to see Jerry in a very different light. I really believe the Lord brings in people into your life to serve as coaches, mentors, people to emulate. And Jerry is one of those for me. So it talks about his ministry, but there was one that's particularly important in that as he served as a minister, he led his daughter, Kimberly, to the Lord. And that plays into, as my wife, her spiritual foundation is wonderful. As a father, as a grandfather, and as a great-grandfather, I've got to watch his love for his family, the kids, and all, and it is something to marvel at and an example to follow. Says he fishes. Yeah, he does. Sometimes he catches fish. But he definitely caught the Lord's will for his life in the service to his country, the service to his church, and the service to his family. So I introduce to you Papa, the Reverend Dr. Jerry Grubbs.
Thank you, David. On behalf of the Alumni Council and all of Anderson University and all those alum, it is my honor tonight to present the John H. Kane Loyalty Award to Reverend Dr. Jerry Grubbs. Jerry, please.
I don't know how to follow that, to be honest, but when the door was open for us to return to Anderson in 1973 and teach in the School of Theology, we began an awesome journey that we could only have dreamed of. I was offered the opportunity to teach at a place and in an area of church ministry that I love so much. To follow my mentor, Dr. Irene Smith Caldwell, in the chair of Christian education was a special gift also. I had the privilege of serving under 3 presidents, Bob Reardon, Bob Nicholson, and James Edwards. During the ups and downs, it was growth-producing and challenging to be on their executive teams. Anderson has been a special place to serve the kingdom of God and the Church of God, my spiritual home. This city and the university community has been a special place to raise our family. The Grubbs family has a long and healthy relationship with Anderson University. 3 generations of our family have attended here. I have 2 brothers and a sister who attended Anderson. Then there are both our children and grandchildren, a host of nieces, nephews, cousins, in-laws, and a couple of outlaws, and others too numerous to count. I lost count when I was trying to write this up at 40. We trace our heritage with Anderson University back some 77 years to 1947. Gratitude is the only word for these years. To be nominated and selected for the John H. Kane Loyalty Award is humbling and deeply appreciated. We pledge our continued support of the ministry of this good place and to continue to honor my parents, J.C. and Ruth Grubbs, as we grow the School of Theology Scholarship we established in their names some years ago. Thank you for the Alumni Council, and thank you, Mr. President.
The Distinguished Service Award. The Distinguished Service Award was first awarded in 1970. The following criteria are used in selecting the Distinguished Service Award recipient. Must be a past or present member of Anderson University faculty or staff, one who has given outstanding service to the institution, and a person who has characterized the values and ideals of Anderson University. Now I'd like to welcome to the podium the presenter for the Distinguished Service Award to Lisa Page Johnston, 2006 alumna Charis Miller.
In 1982, Ted Baker from the admissions office called Lisa while she was still a senior in high school in Durango, Colorado, encouraging her to come to Anderson College. Her grandparents on both sides of the family, her parents, aunts and uncles, and several cousins had already attended, and she was up next. Ted found scholarships, and Lisa's grandparents had also saved enough to enable her to come to AC. She graduated in 1986 and became an official Hoosier. Lisa is a 5th-generation Church of God, with her great-grandmother coming through Ellis Island from Czechoslovakia. President Reardon would later tell Lisa that her grandmother, Sister Wallace, often stood up in the congregation at the old Park Place Church on testimony night, Sunday evenings, and pronounced that she had the victory in one situation or another. Lisa's uncle, Don Dawson, had been the Dean of Men, and her grandfather, I.K. Dawson, was instrumental in beginning the missions board. It would seem that from the very beginning, it was predestined for Lisa to land in Anderson. College memories include cheap thrills, runs to Dunkin' Donuts, Waffle House, Morrison and Rice Hall, also my favorite hall, Rice Hall, and also Stephen and Herb Chapman beginning their music careers. The family's off-campus dances that were secretly advertised by slipping the time and location information under the dorm doors, because as we all know, there is no dancing on campus. Wink, wink, right? You know that, okay. Driving on I-70 to Colorado with Chris Lukengay, Danny Dodge, and Lolly Bargerstock on campus breaks in the dead of winter are some of her fondest memories and best stories. The most memorable chapel in Park Place Church was when Brennan Manning spoke. It was then that Lisa began to understand at a deep level the relentless tenderness of Abba. Being active in CAB with Karen Hamilton on the Real Committee, where they were responsible for editing the movies that were shown on campus, was a delight, especially when the Dean of Students, Cleta Anderson, made sure that they edited out the naked bums in the Barbra Streisand movie, Yentl. Graduating with a degree in social work and later an MSW and finally a clinical license has enabled Lisa to serve at AU in her community and in various church settings. Both of her daughters, Morgan Pay Stanley and Madison Pay Harper, have been a part of AU and have benefited from the rich music environment here. They were each active in IYC throughout middle school and high school as a part of the worship band for the international conferences. Both daughters are married to young men with a Church of God family background, Landon Stanley and Justin Harper. Lisa's husband of 3 years, Ron Johnston, was the director of theater at AU for 20 years, having come from the sunny hills of California in LA to Anderson in 1995. They were both Western folks who eventually made their lives here in the Midwest. Lisa worked at Aspire, Indiana, right out of undergrad, and then upon completion of her graduate work, came back to direct the Counseling Center at AU from 1990 to 2000. Being part of the Department of Student Life at AU under the tutelage of H.L. Baker and Jerry Grubbs was a joy. Department retreats at Linda Cummins Lake House are some of her favorite memories. Lisa began teaching in the social work program at AU in 2000. She has practiced social work with the seriously mental ill, persons impacted by domestic violence, survivors of sexual abuse and assault, and families and children. She has also implemented several Christ-based 12-step recovery programs for churches and organizations, such as Celebrate Recovery. She created a college-based recovery program based on cognitive theory and Christian principles, and she is a sought-after speaker for church, college, counseling, seminars, and youth groups. The reason that I felt passionate that Lisa needed to be nominated for this award was the diverse students that she encountered across the courses that she taught at AU. And that's where we go, that's kind of where I entered the picture. Due to the subject matter of all of the courses that she led, such as Introduction to Sociology, Human Behavior and Social Environment, Human Sexuality, and Thought Life and Spiritual Growth, Lisa ended up in relationship with a very diverse range of AU students. In my time as an AU alum, almost every single other alum who has crossed my path has mentioned Lisa Pay, one of her courses, or how a topic and subject from her teaching has stuck with them and informed how they live out their faith in the world today. The crossover of her subjects with the mental and behavioral needs, as well as the spiritual and social connections that we each have with each other, touches on a sweet spot of faith and service that is absolutely needed in our society today. When we start to discuss topics like identity, worth, our spiritual identity formation, the myth of the soulmate, I remember that class, that blew my mind, human sexuality, the fall, the curse, and restoring sexuality, that is when the real work happens, where we wrestle with issues that are more than just a topic to learn about in a classroom. They're a lifelong subject that we are going to carry with us into our families, our children, our grandchildren, and generations beyond. I was always impressed with how Lisa taught with integrity, encouraging her students to critically engage with the course content and to reflect on how they would apply those truths in their lives beyond the walls of Anderson University. She was never too transparent. There was never any crossing of professional boundaries. However, she was able to live out her faith in a genuine way in front of her students, as a fellow Christ follower who was still on the journey of learning how to be continually transformed in his image. She facilitated the fieldwork of our social work students, led Tri-S trips, senior social work trips, and maintained her own private practice on the side. She doesn't just teach, she rolls up her sleeves and gets involved in the transformation of those around her. I have to say that for myself, I took a victory lap in college, as some are known to do, because it took me until my junior year to really decide what I was going to be passionate about. I came to AU knowing that people were my passion. Relationships, social connections were what fed me for the first couple of years, until both my parents and my advisor said, it's time to buckle down and get something more out of this. And so when I chose social work and family science, I saw in Lisa another person who was passionate about people. And I went on to do ministry for the past 20 years before coming back to work at Anderson. And there are two things that I see in my own ministry that were influenced from Lisa's influence here in those early days as a student. I never wanted to miss the students on the fringe, the students on the edge that were overlooked or maybe overseen or could easily be forgotten. And no matter who was in front of me, I always believed that there was one more step of development that we could take together. So whether I was working with the best Christian student leader I had in my ministry or the football player who knew nothing about the Lord at all, together I knew we could take one more step. Looking for students on the edge and helping students take one more step was something that I know I learned from watching Lisa's example. And then, if you'll indulge me, I asked a friend for a quote because I wanted to illustrate the fact that it wasn't just social work students that were touched by Lisa Pei. There are countless alumni that my husband and I sit with, and her name comes up. And one of my friends said, I would have never gotten to know Lisa if I wasn't forced to take Intro to Sociology. I had heard great things about her teaching, but being a Christian ministry major, our paths were not meant to cross until I signed up for her sociology class. I enjoyed myself, it was a good semester, and I made it through. I then asked her later on, during my senior year, if she would let me come back and take her human sexuality class. She offered up a few prime words that would be used often in her human sexuality class, and I laughed and couldn't contain my middle school sense of humor. She just smiled and said, "No, you're probably not ready." As you can tell, I haven't really grown out of it, and that middle school boy sense of humor has carried on with me. After that, I got to work with Lisa as an RD of the South Campus and Terra East Apartments. And 15 years later, we were both speakers at the Ragamuffin Retreat in the Rockies, where we got to connect again. Watching her and Ron connect with people on the fringe has been such a joy to watch. She has been a wonderful encourager, and I can say that she is the only AU professor whose number I have saved in my phone. Thank you for being there. Thank you for loving the kids on the fringe. We needed you. We always will need you. We continue to need your love and encouragement. Thank you for helping us take one more step. Congratulations on your award today. Sean Chapwell. Sit down.
On behalf of the Alumni Council and Anderson University, it is my honor to present the Distinguished Service Award to Lisa Pei Johnson. Lisa.
Thank you so much, Sheriff. There was a lot of surprises in there. Wow. Thank you. I appreciate it. For those of you that work here, you know the tireless effort that Trent Palmer and his department and advancement and the Alumni Council do for this weekend and all year round. Please help me in thanking them. I'm just glad that Trent is still coherent, given given his pace. Yeah. So Trent said that this was our acceptance speech, and to try to keep it to 3 to 5 minutes. So several years ago, H.L. Baker told me that some people have the gift of continuation. I am some people. Trent also said this was like the Oscars, and I like that. And to mention what the award may mean to us, and to thank the folks that may have helped along the way. For me, there has indeed been a cloud of witnesses on this journey. Some have gone on, and some are still here at AC and AU. It has, this institution has raised me in ways and empowered me to serve and to raise others. Ed Sheeran has song lyrics that says, these people raised me and I can't wait to go home. It's nice to be home today, here, with all of you. C.S. Lewis had mentioned that in a quote that it's a wonderful thing, it's a joy to be amongst your betters. So I'm glad to be here with you today. As Cheris mentioned, when Ted Baker recruited me all the way from Colorado to come to AC, I had no idea the impact this place would have on me going on 40 years now. Being mentored by Jack Lewis, Joe Womack, and Judy Gray as a student in the social work department, and by Lee Griffith in the psychology department, provided the foundation for me to then join the social work faculty years later as a new faculty member. Those early teaching years being mentored by Sharon Collins, Rudy Pyle, Joellen Kennedy, Nancy Fisher, and our fearless leader, Bruce McMurray, were crucial in forming my understanding of pedagogy and what it means to bring your whole self to the classroom. This list is an impressive faculty hall of fame, and they each embody the ethos of a life of faith and service to this place, church, and society. Currently, Maria Scott, Neil Freeman, Melanie Musser, D. Wesley Poitras, Leroy Quashie, and my work spouse now of 30 plus years, Lolly Bargerstock, are the folks that are the souls and the folks that I share our office and our department with day in and day out. They are all experts in their respective fields and are people that go above and beyond in serving our students. Navigating the last several years in higher ed and the pandemic, there emerged a group of 5 or 6 faculty women and we created this text thread, sending snide remarks, little memes, little I can't believe we're surviving, and all these things that little text thread still exists today. And I'm really grateful. It's helped with sanity. Before joining the faculty, I was part of the Department of Student Life, and I believe our professional sense of self emerges in our 20s and 30s. That was way back then. The DOSL Hall of Famers were critical in my understanding of integrating your faith with your vocation, your calling, your career. They modeled truly a seamless lifestyle, side by side. Working side by side with these people really set a course for my life. Leadership was provided by Jerry Grubbs and H.L. Baker for several years. I'm so incredibly grateful to both of you. I'm not so grateful for being dragged around the country on conferences and workshops and having to stop at every greasy little diner that we found on a back road somewhere. But these are men that are very important in my life. With Department of Student Life, we had retreats, as she mentioned, and Linda Cummins, Brent Baker, Tim Johnson, Judy Johnson, Jan Rice, Don Collins, Susan Kirkpatrick. We were all together in these, and these retreats were really important. They provided a sense of unity and connection that you really needed during the academic school year when you're dealing intimately with student issues. One of my fondest memories is being on a jet ski, I believe with Tim Johnson, and being tossed into oblivion on Lake Wawasee. I think that was Linda's retreat house. We miss her so much. But those are really, really important times. As Cheris mentioned, I tend to believe that the best outcome of seasons of struggle in one's personal life is when that suffering is redeemed in a manner that expands your own borders so you can join God in his work with those that are suffering around you. So Encountering a Discipleship Model by Derek Wilder, who has also become and remains a spiritual mentor for me, integrated all that I knew about the science of psychology, the social action of social work, and the truth of the gospel, understanding your identity. That experience led to the creation of the class, Thought Life and Spiritual Growth, in which Derek, Lee Griffith, and Pat Griffin were crucial in getting into AU's curriculum. This curriculum was simultaneously a part of a Christian counseling model called the Convergence Model. This is the model used in the private practice Lives Transforming that I have worked with for over the last decade. Sharing this model based in our identity in Christ in churches, professional workshops, AU Chapel, and in the classroom is one of the most meaningful experiences of my career. Finally, my lifelong friendships and community have begun and existed on this campus. AU gave me Becky Baker and the Baker Clan, Kathy Henderson, Amy and Jay Rouse, Mike and Rhonda Ham, Debbie and Jerry Fox, Lisa Fauntleroy Moore, and Diane Smith Rayleigh. These folks are the daily witnesses to my life. As Cheris mentioned, AU also gave me my two daughters in a roundabout way, and their husbands, and now my grandsons. It was the foundation that gave me my parents, grandparents, uncles, aunt, and cousins that all attended here. AU also gave me Ron Johnston, who directed the theater program, as was mentioned, and he's been my friend since 1995. He's now my husband and joins me in a life of service, but I also get to enjoy fun cars and big dogs. So when Trent asked us to share who and what has been significant, I am guessing he likely knew the can of worms he was opening with me, but when he asked why it was significant to receive this award, well, as you can see, it's really everything. I think true ministry is when you end up receiving more than you give. All of these layers make for a life of service, and those of us who have been around long enough know that you can only serve and authentically give out of your fullness, and my cup truly, truly runneth over. Thank you.
Our next award is the Mosaic Multicultural Alumni Award recipient, Michelle Williams. First awarded in 2017, the following criteria are used in selecting the Mosaic Multicultural Alumni Award recipient, who embodies the ideal of modeling and promoting an environment in which all people feel welcomed and affirmed on the journey toward intercultural humility. Intentionally fostering the values of diversity and racial harmony, which are so deeply rooted in the history and theology of Anderson University and the Church of God. Extending hospitality by interacting in meaningful ways with people whose lives have been shaped by cultures different from their own. Engaging in scholarship or community engagement addresses issues of reconciliation, cross-cultural understanding, and/or racial justice. Serving as an advocate and change agent for marginalized communities, and challenging individuals to recognize automatic assumptions, perceptions, and stereotypes about people with different cultural worldviews. Now I'd like to welcome to the podium the presenter for the Mosaic Multicultural Alumni Award to Michelle Williams, 1985 alumnus, Dr. Brent Baker.
Truly an honor to get to present Michelle to you today. In 2006, after being ordained for 10 years and experiencing a traumatic church split, Michelle D. Williams was drawn to Anderson University School of Theology's mission of equipping women and men for ministry of biblical reconciliation. Michelle was attending seminary and working part-time at Church of God Ministries when she was approached about a position in student life. The position was for the Director of Multicultural Student Services. With a social work and ministry background, this role was a stretch as it required some cross-cultural communication dynamics. However, stepping into the role in the 2007 and 8 school year, she quickly discovered that her ministry and social work background were put to good use. That was the year that Barack Obama was elected president, and the campus, like the country, experienced major racial unrest. Michelle refers to that first year as trial by fire. Throughout the following 7 years, Michelle stood on the university's commitment to the ministry of reconciliation, to establish the MLK Day of Service as an official day off, and organized events to celebrate with the community. The university's diversity committee was rebranded as the Mosaic Committee, and Michelle just whispered that she thought she wrote the description that you just heard that Trent read about the Mosaic Awards. So she also developed the partnership for Center for Leadership Development, as well as the scholarship that accompanies it. Multicultural student leadership was fully integrated into the fabric of university student leaders. As well, there were countless trainings and cultural events. Eventually, Michelle was promoted to Assistant Dean of Students and assumed oversight of the student government and social clubs, as well as the Cultural Resource Center. Under her leadership, Anderson University received the Ignite Intercultural Integrity Award for Midwestern campuses. This award was given to colleges that demonstrated consistent progress towards advancing diversity efforts in 2010. Reflecting on her time at AU, Michelle stated, "My time at AU taught me about leading through traumatic and catalytic times. Racial unrest, student deaths, and continual budget cuts marked my time. However, the mission, the people, and the Spirit of God always shine brightly in the midst of these dark times." After leaving AU in 2015, Michelle went on to serve as the Dean of Students at Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary, where she was able to combine her love for the church and her love for student development. In 2019, Michelle started Shalom Consultants to help individuals, organizations, and ministries of all sizes respond to transitions and stay on mission. With a client roster that includes churches, non-for-profits, educational institutions, and individuals, Shalom Consultants provides peace of mind during stressful times. Currently, Michelle serves as the CEO of Shalom Consultants and the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Firefly Children and Family Alliance. As one of the oldest and largest social service organizations in Indiana, Michelle's primary role is to help the agency's 21 statewide offices and 450-plus employees live out and live into its vision of inclusive and healthy communities of thriving people. For over 20 years, Michelle has worked with people during some of their most formative and stressful seasons of life. She is a prolific communicator and speaks at conferences, retreats, meetings, and workshops on DEI, leadership, soul care, women's empowerment, and spiritual well-being. Along with oral communication, Michelle has written numerous articles for various publications and journals and is a dedicated blogger and ghostwriter. She is the co-author of The Diversity Playbook, Recommendations and Guidance for Christian Organizations. Ms. Williams is a certified diversity executive through the Institute for Diversity Certification and a certified inclusive behaviors inventory facilitator. Whether it's within a church setting, a conference room, or the hallowed halls of academia, shepherding people, programs, and policies requires wisdom and grace. These two attributes are the cornerstone of Michelle's leadership approach. Ultimately, Michelle believes that cultivating meaningful relationships is the key to human thriving, so she is actively involved in her community. As a board member for Regality Incorporated and Just Community Incorporated, an advisory board member for the Tobias Leadership Center, a legacy leader and mentor at Pass the Torch for Women, and an active member of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Indianapolis chapter. Michelle credits her excellent theological education at the AU School of Theology for helping her navigate the deeply polarizing conversations around diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and reconciliation. At the end of the day, I view what I do as a love mandate. I'm called to do this work. My seminary education gave me theological conviction and grounding, but my work on the undergraduate side of the house was my ministry proving ground. It was where theory was put into practice every day. I have a lot of love for Michelle. I learned a lot from her. One of the moments that sticks out most in my mind was having a student who died on campus, actually on an intramural basketball court. And Michelle was the one who was talking to the mother of this student as she made her scared and way to campus and shared the news that her son had died. And as you might imagine, on a campus like ours, the community was upset. I mean, there was just in some ways, a spontaneous response to the death of a student who was a very diverse person himself, an art major and a football player, which those two don't go together very often. But we started in Miller Chapel for this time of students just coming, and it probably 10 o'clock. Folks started coming to Miller Chapel just to cry and to remember, and I was up front trying to give leadership to that time and quickly realized that I was out of my league. And as the numbers grew, we moved to the Reardon Auditorium because there were just so many students. And Michelle was front and center. And I watched her lead. I watched her console. I watched her love students. And it was beautiful. And a memory, as sad as it was, one of my best memories of her time at AU. Two other words that come to mind when I think about Michelle: fierce and kind. I can see her eyes widening at times. I could see some of the reactions probably I've gotten when I said something stupid to her, or something that maybe wasn't as sensitive as it should have been. And she's fierce, and she's very kind. Always have felt respected and loved in the midst of the conversations that were had around conversations that were tough at times. And I have to say that in my 30 years of higher education, Michelle is one of the folks that I think, one of my best hires in 30 years. She came as the director of multicultural services and then moved into leadership, and she just did a wonderful job. And so when she left AU and went to work at Gordon Conwell as the Dean of Students, I just felt so proud of her. Not that I'd had anything to do with all the work she put in to develop and to do the education that she did, but she's excelled. And so past that, she's come back and started her own business, and now is an executive with a social service agency. And she's very deserving of this award, and I'm very glad that I was the one that got to present it. So please help me congratulate Michelle Williams.
So on behalf of Anderson University and the Alumni Council, it is my honor to present the Mosaic Multicultural Alumni Award to Michelle Williams. Michelle.
Trent made a point of saying those are glass awards, so be careful. Thank you, Dr. Baker, for those heartfelt words. If anyone knows me knows I'm a crybaby, so I'm like, oh, get it together. But you reminded me of a bittersweet moment here on campus, and I am grateful for your leadership because you're humble. In saying that you had nothing to do with, but I was a social worker and a pastor, had no thought of working with college students. But when you hired me, I discovered this love for student development and for helping people navigate conversations around differences that would not have happened if you had not had said yes. So I appreciate you. Academic and Christian discovery. That was the tagline that was used here at AU during my time here. And I think about it often because I remember the thousands of students who came to us on freshman orientation day, their bright eyes, the possibilities, all of the things that come with being a freshman in college. I remember watching them in their journey of discovery. I remember watching them 4 or 5 years later walk across the stage during graduation. And I remember understanding that they had discovered so much more than academics. I'm so grateful for this place of discovery. I myself am reflecting on my journey of discovery here, and I acknowledge that I discovered so much more than I thought, so much more than I could have dreamed while I was on this campus. Like I mentioned, I discovered my love for helping people navigate conversations around differences that were difficult, that are difficult. I discovered my love and my passion for reconciliation and what it means to really live into and live out the call to love your neighbor as yourself. I discovered that about me on this campus. I discovered my voice. I discovered my agency. I discovered that what my mom, who's sitting here right now, and I have to give a shout out to her because she's in the room, what my mom and my ancestors poured into me, my grandparents, that foundation of biblical understanding of trusting in God in spite of anything that has happened. Those things were the things that were going to propel me forward. All of that I discovered while here on this campus. And yes, I came to get a degree, but I was so grateful that I discovered that what was in me, what had been prayed into me, what had been prayed about me, was propelling me, was helping me to do the same to other students, to help them to recognize that, yes, those things that your parents have taught you, those things that you learned in Sunday school, that foundation that you were brought up with, you have to lean on that. The academic discovery is amazing. Yes, get those degrees. I'm going to get them. But understand that those foundational principles of Sunday school and prayer and discipline, those are the things that are going to get you through when life gets tough. So, as I accept this award, I'm so, so grateful for this place of discovery, for the people who I discovered here, my friends in student life, my friends who I still keep in touch with to this day, Swail, who's doing amazing things on campus still, Desiree, Tradina, all of the friends who have been there for me. Thank you to everyone who continues to be stewards of this sacred space. Thank you for continuing the legacy of academic and Christian discovery.
Our next award is the Distinguished Young Alumni Award. This was first awarded in 2003. Must be an alumnus of Anderson University, having completed a minimum of 24 semester hours and is under the age of 40. I first got hired on an advancement as the director of Young Alumni, and I've tried to lobby with my boss, Brent Baker, that the Young Alumni Award should always be whatever my age is and under, because I just feel like I am still a young alum. But I got to tell you, I'm not. One who since attending Anderson University has distinguished him or herself through professional and/or personal achievement, and one whose contribution reflects well on the university. This is a unique award in that both our presenter and our winner are not with us today, but have both submitted a short video recording. So please turn your attention to the screen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Isaac Wonderland, and I have the unique opportunity and honor of introducing my good friend and distinguished young alumni recipient, Derek Mallory. Unfortunately, neither Derek or I are able to attend the banquet tonight. While work keeps me in Columbus for the weekend, Derek has a much better excuse. Earlier this week, Derek and his wife, Courtney, embarked on a mission trip to Nicaragua. God provided the Mallorys with a unique opportunity to utilize their gifts and to spread love around the globe. It is for this reason, Derek's commitment to spreading love and helping others, that I originally nominated Derek for this award. Derek credits his success to many people, but most of all, he is thankful to God for his path. He credits the Lord's guidance with him choosing Anderson University. It is at Anderson that Derek was a 4-year member of the track and field program, president of the Boosters Social Club, and an honors college graduate. He credits his father, Derek, with 2 R's, with instilling a love of track and field, and his mother, Marjorie, was supporting his endeavors. It was track that introduced Derek to many of his friends at Anderson, myself included, but more importantly, it is where he met his wife, Courtney Mallory. Together, they own 4 AU track and field records, with Courtney owning all 4 of those. During their time at AU, Derek and Courtney were passionate about volunteering with Special Olympics and Differently Abled, an AU ministry where they helped lead Bible studies and provided fellowship with adults with disabilities within the Anderson community. Derek graduated as an exercise science major in 2017 and continued his education at the University of Indianapolis, graduating with a doctorate of physical therapy in 2021. He currently works as a physical therapist at the Rehabilitation Hospital of Indiana, where he serves patients by helping them regain independence after experiencing traumatic brain injuries or strokes. Within the last year, he has started a brain injury support group where these patients can meet monthly to share triumphs or setbacks during their journey to recovery. Outside of the workplace, Derek and Courtney have become very involved with their local church in downtown Indianapolis. They recently returned from leading a mission trip through said church to Kenya earlier this year to visit the Missions of Hope International and volunteer their time with the Disabilities Ministry. Children with disabilities and their families have historically been rejected from Kenyan society, but Missions of Hope Ministry is teaching the community that these children are made in God's image. Derek and Courtney have also been able to utilize their gifts of therapy in Kenya with an emphasis on training and empowering Kenyan teachers, social workers, and mothers to continue loving and serving their children. What I put together above is a summary of the bio Derek and Courtney provided, but I cannot emphasize enough that it only scratches the surface. Derek is the single most selfless person that I have ever had the pleasure of knowing, and he is incredibly deserving of this award. I want to personally thank everyone who was a part of this selection process for your time and for your selection. Thank you all. God bless and go Ravens.
And now let's go ahead and see the recording of Derek's acceptance speech.
Hello, everybody. My name is Derek Mallory, and I am so honored to receive the Young Alumni Award from AU. I really wish I could be there with you right now. I first off just want to congratulate everybody that's receiving these awards, all my fellow recipients. You guys are celebrating a homecoming, and I'm currently recording this in Western Indianapolis at our home, but as you guys are watching this, my wife and I are in Nicaragua, serving through the Nicaragua Resource Network. God presented such an amazing opportunity for us to integrate our faith with our work and serve with the special needs program down there to help with the therapists and the teachers from Nicaragua that are already doing amazing things. And we just thought it was an amazing opportunity that God led us to integrate our faith with our work. And it just so happened to be during homecoming weekend. So disappointed we can't be there with you guys, but we just wanted to send a quick video and show our appreciation and our thanks. So thank you again to everybody receiving these awards. Congratulations, and thank you to Isaac Wonderland, who nominated me, and for everybody here that's celebrating. AU holds a special place in my wife and I's hearts, and we wouldn't be where we are without God leading us to AU. God bless, go Ravens.
Let's go ahead and give a big round of applause. Maybe you'll hear it all the way from Nicaragua. All right, and our final award is our Distinguished Alumni Award. The following criteria are used in selecting the Distinguished Alumni Award recipient. Must be an alumnus of Anderson University, having completed a minimum of 24 semester hours. One who has given distinguished service to humanity through his or her profession and or personal achievement. And one whose contribution reflects well on Anderson University. So now I would like to go ahead and welcome to the podium the presenter for the Distinguished Alumni Award to Tony Romano, 1957 alumna Judy Renbarger.
President, I hope you don't mind. I remember having a friend from the South that was on this campus, and one of their favorite expressions was, "Boy, we're in some high cotton tonight." And I don't know if you have to be Southern to understand that, but they were talking about a great production of a crop that yielded riches. And I think you feel the same way I do after hearing that, these recipients. I think you feel like I do. This is really high cotton. The other thing that I think the administrators, teachers, audience should feel tonight is since the inception of this institution, service was paramount. You love people, and when you love people, you put that love into action. And you have to agree tonight, it was wonderful to hear of all the things that have been accomplished by this group of people. And admissions now still will say service. It is service. We want to impact the world. We want to impact our community. And I think that these individuals have done that. I'm introducing the final recipient tonight, Mrs. Tony Romano. Looking out at this crowd, many of you are going to understand this. There's something that just irritates the life out of me for quite a while, and that was these programs about happy days, the 50s. Everything was happy days, and there were no real commitments to things. There were no depth of character or intelligence or personality. And it stuck in my craw for a long time. And I warned Tony that I said, there's some things I'm going to have to say tonight. And I want to remind those of you that also lived through this. Let's talk about the life experiences before you got to this campus. The thing that struck me first of all was the Depression. You were born coming out of the Depression. Now, there just wasn't some magic switch that said, oh, the Depression's over. No, it was not over. This college struggled to stay afloat. They had, homecoming was harvest time. They would bring in food. The faculty members would have bean feeds. And for some kids, that meal went for more than one day. And we went from the Depression to World War II. And in Mrs. Romano's experience, her father, and I want to digress here, so stay with me, came over from Italy with parents and was an immigrant. Tony was the firstborn American, Italian American. And when he was here and trouble began to rise, he joined the Marines. And at the time he did this, it became 3 years in the South Pacific. 3 years away from his family in the South Pacific. And then her mother could not keep a family going just on a military allotment. And she had to return to the work. So that left the girls to take care of one another. And in Tony doing this, there was growth, there was empathy, there was responsibility. Then, as you heard with Reverend Grubbs, Korean War. And then came all the civil unrest where the church and the college was faced with more than lip service that no longer was acceptable. And there was a lot of unrest and a lot of turmoil, as with the Vietnam War. And so I just needed to get that off to say how much, when I look over the audience, many of you survived. And when I also read Mrs. Romano's accomplishments, I want you to figure out the things that she did. They were the result of becoming self-reliant, developing an empathy, and then you add that to her giftedness of intelligence she was an effective communicator with other people. Before the term was popular, she was a servant leader. And I know that phrase now, sometimes I feel might be a little overused, but as I read the things that she was involved in, just think about how these life experiences groomed her. Her mother and father kept a faith. They kept her grounded in the church. And when I read these, just think how they played into effect here. She graduated, as it says, in 1957 with a degree, Bachelor of Science in Christian Education. And that degree has just been the personification of a life of service. When she graduated from high school, her mother had written a little excerpt and said to her, "Remember in the second grade when Mrs. Matheny, or Matheny, was it Matheny? She's dead, you know, we don't, she won't be upset with us. But when she appointed you as a member of the committee to water the pumpkin seeds, second grade, wonder how that figured into things. But as I said, her folks kept the faith. They kept her grounded after giving her heart to God at the altar of the Macon Street Church of God. At again, a very tender age of 7, she became active in the church. She taught kindergarten students. She performed many activities, and as she matured in the church, she was very involved in local, state, and national youth fellowship programs in various capacities. She entered Anderson College in 1953 as an individual who'd already distinguished herself as a leader. At 16 years old, she had been the youngest person to be elected as secretary for the International Youth Fellowship. And when she came into the college, it was just natural. She became secretary of the class. She was the editor of the yearbook for 2 years. She still performed service for other people. She worked part-time at the School of Theology, the whole time keeping a nice, healthy, high academic honor. And I might also add that at that time, the student population had many returning veterans from Korea, and they weren't here to mess around. They were here to learn. They were competitive, and she held her own in that academic world. And at the time of graduation, she earned the distinction of being listed as who's who among students in American colleges and universities. In 1957, her senior year, she married a fellow student, Manker Harris. He was from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and he received his Master's of Divinity. He returned to the college in 1962, and it was at that time that as a couple, they moved to Lansing, Michigan, where Manker became co-pastor of the Church of God. So the pastor's wife, in addition to having 3 daughters born in the years between 1959 and 65, she was also, as a pastor's wife, very active as a volunteer in Christian education programs. But she saw a need and a different way of doing things, and she created a new educational unit which was more age appropriate for Sunday school children. And she worked, and they initiated an extension of the Sunday school session for elementary teachers where they were instructed in Bible stories, in life skills as a young Christian, and the parents were able to stay in the service. And that they also created a parent cooperative nursery school. Again, there's still a lot of needs to supervise children, to give them a safe place to learn and to study. Things weren't always smooth. There was the loss of a child. In 1966, the era of civil unrest and war, Vietnam protests were rampant, and Manker was called back to Decatur to serve as minister in the ecumenical ministry and community. Tony started out as a volunteer, but she was elected president of the newly formed Decatur Association for Racial Equality, and she represented the organization on the Black Central Coordinating Committee. I recall an incident where the Mankers were in Cairo attending a service and trying to, again, keep this paramount in the church, in the community's efforts. And they had to take cover as there were gunshots into the meeting room. So this wasn't just a classroom experiment. They were on the front lines. And as I say, her skills, her love, her passion came in elected offices. While they were in Decatur, another area of services opened up, and that, again, was in the educational community. And she, along with several mothers, spearheaded another parent cooperative nursery school. And at that time, the mothers of kindergarten children had done their own homework, and there was a lot of discussion about the open education movement, where classrooms were designed where students could move in these younger grades at their own pace, where they would have a chance to experience education with volunteers, as I say, mothers. They also had a teacher in their school that was from the Federal Teacher Corps. And the Corps provided many educational opportunities for young people. This program was multiracial, multicultural. Scholarships were gotten for inner city children. As I say, mothers assisted in the classroom, but they had to really struggle to get everything from a classroom, everything, because we were a small denomination, even though it was an ecumenical movement. Now this is time for a fact check. This school received attention and was in Life magazine. And as I say, fact check. I actually made them dig around and find the Life magazine in which an article featured the school. So we want to clear that, given today's climate of everything being disputed. This is for the fact check later on. That for the rest of it is January, in case anybody's taking notes, January 8th, 1971, Life magazine. Okay, in this time frame, Tony decided to go into the secular world. And I said to her the other day, did you ever apply for a job? And she thought, and she said, well, no, I never had to apply for the jobs, except for one, and I had to convince the Decatur Board of Education to accept me with my degree in Christian education so I could teach in public education. And so again, this was a time of federal programs, federal money, and she went into the Comprehensive Employment and Training Act, CETA, a familiar term that most people are still familiar with. There was big thrust to check people that were trapped in poverty, who were economically disadvantaged youth, dislocated workers, dislocated homemakers. The program was quite enormous and quite a responsibility. And in this opportunity, it expanded to her appointment in 1976 as a coordinator of 3-year interagency grant programs with the Illinois Community College Board, offering training to those people that were going to work in these programs. She was then named in '79 director of another 3-year grant awarded to the Illinois Board of Higher Education to, again, prepare other people to work at their highest performance. She was hired by the Illinois Department of Commerce and Community Affairs, DECA, located in Chicago, to monitor and offer special assistance to local job training programs. She had to check on the accountability of the spending on these programs. Even though she was very busy in this, she returned to school and picked up a Master's of Arts degree in '75 for the University of Illinois, and she had a major in human development. Now, in 1991, Illinois offered a retirement program, which at that age she decided would be wise to take. But she moved to another area of service, and one I think she became familiar with because she did something that I really admire about people who are always serving other people, and that is to examine your motives. You know, what is this doing for me? Am I doing the thing because for the right reasons? And she took a very deep spiritual journey to ask, what am I doing and why am I doing this? Other than I love people. But she, again, I said she had a gift for being able to get people to work together. These awards were not individual awards, and that's one of the outstanding things about this award. None of these people sought these awards. You don't try to say, oh, one day I want to be the distinguished alum. You don't do that. You become that. And everybody here is to be commended. They didn't sell the most albums. They didn't win the most races. They served and got other people involved in working. And so when she began exploring spiritual principles and concepts, she went deeper in for medication. Yeah, I'd already been on medication in the job she had, but for meditation and for spiritual building communities and things for, again, exploring oneself. She worked in 2 nonprofit spiritual organizations, ARE, which is the Association for Research and Enlightenment, and the Personal Transformation and Courage Institute, all national programs. And so for the next several years, she traveled throughout the United States to develop and support local programs, and again, to always stay in touch with what is my motivation, who is my leader. And so upon this last retirement that she's taken, she continues her life of service by visiting the elderly in nursing home, caring for friends who are homebound, volunteering for local activities, but also for helping individuals transition through death. So she still hasn't retired. And she even took time to write her memoirs down. So I say again, this award is merited. And as all of you who have been awarded, this was our thanks to you for keeping things faith-based and keeping things in perspective. And so I want to thank her mother and father, Cleo and Antonio, for modeling behavior that kept her grounded. And I think we ought to thank the second grade teacher for introducing her to committee work. And I think more than pumpkin seeds were watered and nurtured. Congratulations to all of the recipients, and to you, Tony. Thank you. Did you come up for the fact check, Mr. FBI?
No fact check. No, yes. So on behalf of the Alumni Council of Anderson University, it is my honor to present the Distinguished Alumni Award to Tony Romano.
I babysat that man. He doesn't even remember. Well, I'm overwhelmed by listening to everybody's story of how you came to Anderson and what your life was like here. And I'm just grateful, humbled, and appreciative of receiving this award.
And thank Judy. You know, when we were in college, people thought we were hooked at the hip because we were always doing things together, some good things and some feisty things. It just didn't matter. We were the best of friends. So thank you, Judy, for nominating me and sharing my life with the audience. So my time at Anderson College it was a college then, was one of the most magical times of my life. It was where I learned a lot of leadership skills, made lifelong friends, adored my college professors. I was a student of Dr. Gertrude Little in the Christian Education Department, and she got myasthenia gravis in my senior year, and she asked me to grade her this brain gets lost every once in a while. She asked me to grade the final exams for the last semester that I was in school. And that was quite a task to start with, to think that I had to evaluate what her students learned. You know, it's quite an interesting opportunity and responsibility. But she was a wonderful mentor for me, and I would come back at homecoming and make sure that I got to see Gertrude Little. I don't know how many of you ever met her or knew her, but she was wonderful. My dad said to me one time, "Honey, why aren't you using your Christian education?" You know, there was no church that could hire me as a director of Christian education. I had to find work and other things to earn money because most of our churches were too small to hire another person besides a minister. So I said, I used my Christian education every day of my life in everything that I choose to do. And that's how I lived my life. When I grew up in the 40s and 50s, everything was a sin. And the church I went to, it was hellfire and damnation. It wasn't a whole lot of love of God or that kind of thing. It was a lot of negativity. And, you know, I was afraid most of my life that I'd never make it to heaven, even the bottom shelf. So when I was a teenager, we finally got a minister. His name was Reverend Kenneth Tabor, and his lovely wife, Margie. And they brought a whole new perspective of what being a Christian was and what being in church was about. And I lived at church. We literally, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, Friday night, Saturday morning, we were there for something all the time. And cottage prayer meetings in our home, that kind of thing. And I learned a much healthier way to live my life as a Christian. And of course, that then led me to Anderson College because, and I have to say, I'm the oldest of my father's side of the family in terms of grandchildren. But I was the first one to choose to go to college on either side of my family. So it was a really big deal for me to be able to come to Anderson and study and make all my wonderful friends and have them for all my life. But back to the way I was brought up, you know, you couldn't go to a movie, you couldn't dance, you couldn't drink a little glass of wine once in a while, you know, those kinds of things. So Judy mentioned I married Manker Harris, and we borrowed Ken Lockhart's car and went to Indianapolis to see a movie because we didn't want to be caught going to a movie in Anderson. So we walk into the theater, and who's sitting a few rows ahead of us? Hollis and Elizabeth Pistol. Yes. So we felt more comfortable being at that movie because our seminary professor was there with his wife. I couldn't wait to tell that story. Well, now everybody knows. So I just want to reiterate how grateful I am to have been to Anderson College and to have made all the many friends. I have Kenny with me here tonight, and Luana Boyer Hale, who were students with me, and Billy, the professor from here. What's your last name, Billy? Oh, Billy Farman, that's right. I lost it for a minute. He and my sister have really stayed very good friends because my sister Sandra, who also was an alumni of Anderson College, has a partner, David Earl Collins, who was here at school. In fact, Billy and David were on my prayer list for 4 years because they were not living the kind of life on campus that they should have been. But they both turned out to be wonderful, wonderful educators and leaders in the church and in the college, and in David in his school in Ohio. So anyway, I'm telling all kinds of tales. You probably ought to get me off the stage quickly. But anyhow, it's just been wonderful to be here. And with Judy and I, we're almost 90 years old, so we're older than most of you before you were ever born or anything. And I can't find anybody I know that I didn't invite to come be with me. So anyway, thank you very much for the award, for the opportunity to be here, and Judy especially for nominating me. Thank you.
This has been a great afternoon. Again, to hearken back to President Morrison's life saved by only dedication is something larger than itself. Purpose of life is to spend it for something that will outlast it. I feel like we've heard from 5 folks and their presenters and lives lived that legacy has certainly outlasted what they've given back. So let's give a big, big, big round of applause to our 5 winners tonight. It's been a special weekend here at AU. In addition to our 5 recipients, tonight across campus there have been nursing and music alumni honored, as well as the induction of the 2024 Athletics Hall of Fame. Anderson University is relentless in its churning out of remarkable graduates that truly do, as our mission states, live lives of faith and service in the church and society. Thank you all for coming out tonight, and please enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you. Yes, group photo for the award winners. Please come up toward the front of the stage. Thank you.